Welcome back to Fireside Jets, my friends, with your boys Alex and Ryan. Today we're discussing, the recent news that Zach Wilson was just benched, according to Robert Saleh, and Mike White will be starting. And according to some reporters, Zach Wilson's response to finding out that he was being benched was, "Why me? I want to play." Well, Zach, if you want to play, 2 yards of offense in the second half last week is definitely not in your favor, right? 3 points of overall production, definitely not in your favor. Blaming everybody else but yourself, definitely not in your favor. Saying that he doesn't feel bad for the defense, definitely not in your favor. Go look at what Josh Allen said when he lost. Like, what was it, last week or something? He was like, "This is all my fault when the quarterback plays like shit. You can't expect to win games. It's hard in this league to win games. I got to be better." Zach Wilson, take some freaking accountability for your actions and your lack of production. It's everybody's fault but his. And that's a problem. And Robert Saleh, for the record, is doing the right thing right now and saying that, you know what? We're going to bench you because you do not understand that you have to take accountability for your actions. You have to be a leader. You can't just expect to be given things. You were the second overall pick. We've given you all the opportunities. We've given you chances. We've waited you to come back from injury, and you haven't been able to do anything. You haven't been able to do as much. You're missing throws. You're missing reads. You're not going through your progressions properly, and you're blaming everybody else but yourself, right? You need to have some accountability. You need to learn a lesson. I think that he might be a little bit too egotistical right now. And I think this is going to be a massive wake-up call to Zach Wilson to say, you know what? This league is a results league. If you do not produce, you do not play. And I think this is a positive thing that Saleh is doing because he's siding with his players instead of the individual. And I think that is what we should be talking about right now. He's playing into his players, their mentality, their confidence, and showing them that he will be on their side because they're putting the work in. They're doing what needs to be done, but Zach Wilson clearly isn't. So, Ryan, how are you feeling after hearing this news? And obviously, this is definitely a big change for the Jets and in the coming weeks, and we'll see what Mike White can do.
Absolutely, Alex. I mean, it's a lot to dissect right now. I think you just start. It was the necessary move. I think it's an absolute no-brainer to pull Zach with the way he's predominantly played throughout his 7 starts of 2022. It's just not good enough overall. Not even close to being good enough, even in the wins that the Jets have had with him. I mean, you're looking at the Steelers game. He had a couple of bad interceptions. The Bills game, he threw for 150 yards. It hasn't been there. I think the most encouraging thing to take away from it is that there's actual grown-ups running the Jets now. And I think Robert Saleh handled that press conference that just ended, caught the whole thing. I thought he handled it, as professional as he possibly could. I think he really had to be intrigued by Saleh and just some of his growth in his second year. He to his defense, like to his credit, he was kind of sticking up for Zach. Like he said, hey, it's more of just a reset. He says the plan is to go back to Zach at some point, this year. I mean, I guess you play that by ear at this point, though. You don't really make any guarantees with that. But, Saleh really touched up on the, footwork, just the, fundamentals, the mechanics and some of the inaccuracies that Zach has had. And, for him to really, I guess this has been a point because Saleh did kind of, say like it's been an issue and he really has not consistently corrected it. As we saw, you just look at a couple of those screen passes from the game the other day, how poor his footwork has been and the inaccuracy it's led to. And just overall, the offense is, these skill position players, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin. There's too many talented players for this operation to consistently be this poor. And you look at the defensive side of the football. This is a group that, despite being on the field for predominantly 3 of the last 4 games, they still find themselves as the 8th ranked unit in the NFL. They should be even higher if the Jets can improve in the time of possession department. And obviously Zach's post-game press conference comments, probably didn't help his case by any means. Saleh did say that Zach did address the team, behind closed doors, and I guess, took ownership of his poor play, but overall, like I said, it just hasn't been good enough from Zach. I think moving forward, there's a good enough opportunity for this team to, still make the playoffs. I think in this particular, situation for Zach, the team has accelerated its development so fast that, it kind of hurts him in the sense that people didn't expect the Jets to be 6-4 playing for a playoff spot. And, that works against him. If the Jets are 4-6 and, things are, going down south, they're not in the playoff hunt, I think he still gets an opportunity. But at this point in time, I mean, it's an easy decision and, happy that Saleh ultimately had the courage to do it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, Zach, it's tough because I know you just were looking at his film like a couple minutes ago and that film from week 11. And, you tell us, was it ugly? I imagine it was
Well, it
pretty bad to
was,
watch.
I mean, there were misreads, there was inaccuracy, there was poor footwork. I mean, just about everything that you could ask for. And obviously, he didn't get a ton of help from his teammates, which, Salah did stand up there and say that, the offensive line, the skill players, which, again, I think is more just coach speak. But, overall from Zach, it was a lot more bad than it was good.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the consensus right now is that last week was the tipping point. He was having like some okay quarters and never like an okay game. It was always like an okay quarter and then another quarter that was bad. So the lack of consistency. But last week, a very winnable game. Like Patriots defense is good, but they're not good enough to hold you to 3 points. They've been blown out by a couple of bad teams this year, or at least had substantial points put on them. So if Mike White comes out and he takes risks, he makes the right decisions. I would not be surprised if he continued on playing the rest of the season for this Jets team, right? Like Mike White will throw interceptions. Don't get me wrong. He will throw picks, but it's only because he's trying to make things happen, right? Zach Wilson, when he throws interceptions, he just throws it up. Like it's not even like they're the other team did film work the week prior, saw that they were having success with something specific, and then they reacted to that. Like for example, the Giants, if you look at the Giants, they've been running Darius Slayton on the crossing routes all season long to get production because they have no receivers. But eventually the Lions realized, okay, they're getting a lot of production from this. Let's drop our defensive edge, Aiden Hutchinson, into that path, and he got an interception. That's not the way Zach Wilson is getting picked off. Zach Wilson is getting picked off because he's running around aimlessly like a chicken with his head cut off, and he's throwing the ball up into the air and letting the MetLife wind just absolutely sail it right into the hands of a gifted, defender. So, right now I'm thinking more so this isn't really like good film work from defenses. This is Zach Wilson making dumbass mistakes, and I think that is where the line is crossed. That is where the tipping point is. And now you're looking at if Mike White gets picked off, it's probably because of a nicer play. It's probably because he's not just throwing it up at 50-50 ball, hoping for something to happen. He's actually trying to make something happen and he's reading the progressions right. It was just a good play by a defender. So that's what you hope. Interceptions, there's context clues in interceptions that you have to look at. Is it just a stupid, risky throw, or was it a good play by a defensive player? And that plays into the equation at all times. So talking about Mike White, what do you expect from him moving forward? You've seen him. What kind of quarterback do you think he is? A little bit less risky, a little bit more fundamental based. How do you think he can maybe give this offense a boost?
It's a great question, Alex. I think with Mike White, what you see is just a guy that can run the offense efficiently, and he proved that in the win over the Bengals last year, the first quarter or two that he played in that Colts game before he got hurt. I think you see a guy who, is a professional quarterback, can, take what's there. I think that's the main thing that this Jets offense right now is just lacking with. And you see that with open receivers that Zach, wasn't targeting, some of the inaccuracies, obviously, with his throws and just the mechanics, the footwork, and how poor overall the operation was. I think with Mike White, you have a guy with veteran experience, a guy that's, proven himself in this offense with this team just as recently as a year ago. And, you said, I mean, the turnovers, I guess, are fair to expect. And that was a bit of an issue in a couple of his starts last year. But you're talking about a guy with size. He's tall in the pocket. I think that, at times the batted balls at the line of scrimmage for Zach, definitely did pop up. And obviously his size, was a concern that some people have had up until this point. And I mean, from there, even, Zach's not even going to be the backup this week. I mean, it's going to be Joe Flacco as the second string. And, it's, as Salah said in his press conference, it's really just an ultimate reset, for Zach to, really, you don't want to force, as Salah was saying, the mechanics while you're trying to prepare for an opponent. I think as you're practicing, I mean, you got to really game plan things. There's only so many opportunities you get. To where I think it is probably in Zach's best interest, I guess whatever percentage there is that, he can still turn things around. Obviously it's been as bad of a start as you could ask for in 20 starts, but I think for him to, really just completely refrain himself from the situation, get back to the basics, the fundamentals, and really elevate Joe Flacco there, is another interesting development. But, overall, this Jets team still has everything that they want in front of them. At 6-4, they've surpassed expectations. This is simply, a move that I think Salah had to make, for the sake of this locker room.
Yeah, it comes down to the locker room at the end of the day. You look at your defense, you look how well they're playing, you look at your offensive players and how much talent you have in Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore literally is not even a factor. And I think that Elijah Moore's frustration Yes, while targeted at Mike LaFleur and Saleh and not getting him as involved, is just as much correlated to Zach Wilson not being able to find him. There are plays you'll probably look over, you'll see Zach Wilson, or rather Elijah Moore, is wide open, and Zach just misses him, and Zach doesn't see it, and Zach doesn't give him the route time to develop, and obviously not ideal, but we'll see what happens here, guys. Hopefully Mike White steps up and plays really well, and put some fire in Zach Wilson, because ultimately, at the end of the day, they really need to boost this offense. And if Mike White is the catalyst, Zach's going to be like, I might lose my job right now. And if that's the case, you're looking at a player that probably is going to be traded this upcoming offseason, and for a team that, may just want to take a crack at him and see what they can do to boost his value. And it probably pennies on the dollar. You're going to trade him. You're not going to trade him for a first round pick. That's for sure. You might not even get a second round pick for him because of how bad he's been playing. So we'll see what happens, guys. Definitely interesting. Would love to hear perspectives, as always, in the YouTube comments below. Make sure to enjoy the rest of your day as we head into Thanksgiving here. So stay safe and enjoy time with your family. Make sure to like and subscribe, as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.